There was a 12-year-old girl named Amara. She lived in a small run-down house, at the edge of the town with her parents. They were not rich, not by any means. Her father worked long hours in a factory, and her mother did her best to help by selling food by the side of the road. Every day, Amara would walk to school, wearing the same torn uniform. Her shoes were worn out, and sometimes, she didn't have enough money for lunch. It hurt her to see other kids laughing and playing with the snacks their parents gave them. Amara often had to sit by herself because she couldn't afford the treats others enjoyed. But Amara was smart. She loved school, especially the subjects her teachers taught. She dreamed of a future where she could be somebody important, somebody people would respect. Despite the hardships, Amara never let her spirit break. Yet, it wasn't easy. Every day, the other kids would laugh at her. The girls with light skin and shiny, new uniforms would call her names. "Look at you, poor girl," they would shout. "You don't belong here with us." Amara would lower her head and keep walking. Sometimes she felt like crying, but she never let anyone see her tears. One day, Amara walked into the schoolyard, clutching her worn-out ball, ready to play with the other kids during recess. She hoped today might be different. Maybe, just maybe, they would let her join their game. But as soon as she walked onto the field, the other girls began to laugh. "Look at her," one of them sneered. "The poor girl thinks she can play with us. She can't even afford new shoes." The others joined in, snickering and pointing. Amara felt her face turn red with embarrassment. She tried to walk away, but one of the girls shoved her. "Go play somewhere else, poor girl," she said, grinning. "You're not good enough for us." Amara stumbled and fell to the ground, her ball rolling away. The laughter from the other kids echoed in her ears. She felt small, invisible. But then, something inside her stirred. She stood up, dusted herself off, and grabbed her ball. She wasn't going to let them treat her this way. It wasn't just the girls who were mean to Amara. The boys would join in too. They would make fun of her for being poor, calling her a nobody who couldn't do anything right. When it was time for physical activities, Amara would always be picked last. The other kids didn't want her on their team, and she knew it was because of her clothes, her dark skin, and her family's struggles. Amara tried so hard to ignore them. Every night, she would study in her small room, reading books her mother had bought for her from the second-hand market. She did well in class, even though it felt like the world was against her. But no matter how hard she worked, no matter how good she did in school, it never seemed enough. The kids at school just couldn't see past her appearance. They didn't understand that she was more than her clothes, more than her family's poverty. Amara had a secret. Whenever the bullies weren't around, she would sneak off to the street court and practice her ball skills. The street was where she truly came alive. She loved the feeling of the ball bouncing beneath her fingers, the wind in her hair, the thrill of dribbling past imaginary opponents. She wasn't just any girl on the street, she was the best. But she kept it a secret. One sunny day, a man came to Amara's school. He was tall and had a kind smile. He looked around, and soon enough, the headmaster called for the students to gather in the playground. Amara stood in the back, watching. The man, who introduced himself as Coach Okoro, explained that he was there to look for talent for a special ball competition. "Today, we will be selecting players for an upcoming event," Coach Okoro announced. "But don't worry everyone, it's not about if you are rich or poor. It's about your skill and heart." The kids murmured in excitement. Amara's heart raced. Could this be her chance? Could she show everyone just how good she was? The coach asked the students to play a game, to show their skills. The other girls and boys jumped at the chance, pushing and shoving to get to the front. Amara stayed back, unsure of herself. She wasn't part of their group, and she didn't know if she was good enough to stand out. As the game began, Amara hesitated. She had always been told she wasn't good enough. She was just the poor girl. But as soon as the ball hit her feet, something inside her clicked. She remembered every moment she spent practicing on the street court. She dribbled, passed, and shot with precision. To her surprise, Coach Okoro stopped the game and pointed at her. "You. What's your name?" Amara froze, her heart pounding. The other kids turned to look at her. She hesitated but then replied, "Amara." "Amara, show us what you've got." Coach Okoro encouraged. The game resumed, and this time, Amara was in the center of it all. She weaved through the other players, dribbling the ball with ease. The kids, who had once laughed at her, now watched in disbelief as she moved faster than anyone they had seen before. She dodged, spun, and passed the ball like a professional. Even the big boys who used to bully her couldn't keep up. They tried to block her, but Amara was too fast. The crowd cheered as Amara scored the winning goal for her team. For the first time in her life, the other kids were speechless. They couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Amara had outplayed them all, and in that moment, she had earned their respect. Coach Okoro smiled. Amara, you've got real talent. I want you to join my team. The other kids, who had once treated her like nothing, now surrounded her, asking for her number, begging to be friends. Amara looked at them, the very same kids who had called her poor, and nodded. She had shown them that it didn't matter how much money you had or what your background was. Talent was everything. From that day on, whenever Amara passed by, the other students gave her space. They saw her differently now, not as the poor girl, but as someone to admire. And Amara, with her heart full of pride, knew that no matter how hard life had been, she had found her place. She had shown them that she was more than they ever thought she could be. After Amara's incredible performance on the field, things started to change for her. The once unapproachable and cold students now greeted her with shy smiles and respectful nods. It felt strange, yet somehow comforting. Amara had always been the girl that no one paid attention to, the girl that everyone laughed at. But now, she was the one everyone was talking about. In the days that followed, Coach Okoro took a special interest in Amara. He invited her to practice with his team, a group of talented, but mostly wealthy, kids who had everything she had never had. They had nice shoes, expensive gear, and their parents drove them to training sessions in shiny cars. But none of that mattered to Coach Okoro. He saw potential in Amara that went beyond wealth. You've got raw talent, Amara, Coach Okoro told her one afternoon as they practiced. But talent alone isn't enough. You've got to work harder than anyone else. Amara nodded eagerly. She knew she had to work harder if she wanted to prove to the world that she belonged. But the work wasn't easy. Every day after school, she would run to the training ground, often arriving late because her parents didn't have a car to take her. She would train until the sun dipped low in the sky, her body aching but her heart full of determination. However, not everyone was supportive of her newfound fame. Some of the students who had once bullied her still watched from the sidelines with scornful eyes. One girl in particular, Binta, seemed to have it out for Amara. Binta was one of the wealthiest girls in school, and she couldn't stand the idea of a poor girl like Amara outshining her. You don't belong here, Binta sneered one afternoon as Amara walked by the girls' locker room. Amara stopped in her tracks, heart racing. What do you mean? She asked, though she already knew the answer. You'll never be one of us, Binta said, her voice dripping with disdain. No matter how much you practice, you'll always be poor. You'll never have what we have. Amara's hands trembled, but she kept her voice steady. Maybe that's true, she said softly. But I'll never stop trying. I'll keep going, even if I don't have everything you have. Binta laughed. We'll see how far that gets you. Amara turned and walked away, but her mind raced. She could feel the weight of Binta's words, but deep down, she knew something Binta didn't, none of that mattered. Amara had something far more powerful than money, far more valuable than status, heart, passion, and the will to succeed. Weeks passed, and Amara's skill on the field only improved. Coach Okoro was right, she was working harder than anyone else. Her dribbling, her passing, and her ability to read the game became better with each practice session. And slowly, the other students began to notice. One day, while Amara was practicing alone on the court after school, a message came that would change everything. A tall man in a suit approached her, holding a letter in his hand. Amara, right? He asked, his voice warm. She nodded, confused but curious. Yes. Who are you? I'm Mr. Emeka, from the national youth team, the man explained. Coach Okoro has recommended you for a special tournament next month. We've been watching you play, and we think you've got what it takes to represent our country. Amara's heart stopped. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The national team. Representing her country. This was everything she had ever dreamed of, but it also felt so far out of reach. I don't know if I'm ready," Amara stammered, her mind racing. "You've got the skill," Mr. Emeka said with a reassuring smile. "But more importantly, you've got the heart. That's what we need. Will you join us?" Without hesitation, Amara nodded. This was her chance. She wasn't going to let it slip away. The next few days were a whirlwind for Amara. Her parents were overjoyed when they heard the news. They could hardly believe it. Their daughter, who had always struggled, was being given the chance to represent her country. But there was one problem: money. The National Youth Teams program wasn't free. There were training fees, travel expenses, and equipment costs. Amara's family couldn't afford any of it. "I'm so sorry, Amara," her mother said one evening, her eyes filled with sadness. "We want to help you, but we just don't have enough money." Amara didn't know what to do. This opportunity was slipping through her fingers because of something she couldn't control. She thought about giving up. She even considered telling Coach Okoro that she couldn't afford to join the team. But then she remembered the harsh words from the bullies at school, their laughter and their taunts. She couldn't let them win. "I'll find a way," Amara said quietly, determination burning in her chest. She didn't know how she was going to do it, but she would find a way. She had always found a way. In the days that followed, Amara began to think of ways to make money. She asked her parents if she could help them sell food by the roadside, offering to take on more shifts. But it still wasn't enough. One evening, as she sat outside her house, staring at the moon, an idea came to her. She could play on the street. The street where she had practiced ball for years. There were always people who liked to watch street games, and maybe, just maybe, she could make money playing. She approached a few local businesses and asked if they would be willing to sponsor her. At first, they laughed, thinking she was just a little girl with big dreams. But Amara was determined, and soon enough, a small local store agreed to sponsor her, providing enough money to cover her fees. Amara's heart soared. It wasn't much, but it was enough. She was going to the tournament. The day of the tournament finally arrived, and Amara stood at the edge of the court, watching the other players. They were all so much older than her, more experienced, and more skilled. But she didn't let that scare her. She had come this far, and she wasn't going to back down now. As the game began, Amara's nerves threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed them aside. She dribbled the ball, her hands steady. With each pass, each shot, she grew more confident. Her teammates, who had once doubted her, now cheered her on. They saw her for who she really was, someone with heart. Amara played like a champion, her feet moving faster than she had ever imagined. She scored goal after goal, leading her team to victory. By the end of the game, she was surrounded by applause and cheers, not just from her teammates, but from the spectators who had witnessed her rise from an underdog to a star. As the tournament came to a close, Amara stood on the podium, holding her trophy high. She had done it. She had won, and in doing so, she had proven to the world, and to herself, that she was more than just a poor, dark-skinned girl. She was a force to be reckoned with. The crowd cheered, and Amara's heart swelled with pride. Her family, who had watched from the sidelines, rushed to congratulate her. "You did it, Amara," her mother cried, tears streaming down her face. Amara smiled, knowing that this victory wasn't just about the trophy, it was about everything she had overcome to get here. It was about never giving up, even when the world seemed determined to knock her down. The bullies at school. They never laughed at her again. Instead, they watched in awe as she walked by, knowing that they had underestimated her. Amara had shown them all what true strength meant.